Welcome to Quick Course Digest. Today, we're diving into business ethics. It's one of those topics where the right choice, well, it's almost never the easy one. And the stakes? They can be higher than you could ever imagine.
All right, let's start with a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine you've poured your entire life, your blood, sweat, and tears into building a company from the ground up. And your signature product? It's a game-changing meatless burger that's become a global sensation. But here's the thing, you're not just selling food, you're selling trust.
And then, one day, the phone rings. And that single call, it's the one that shatters absolutely everything you've worked so hard to build. The news is devastating. 3 people, totally unrelated, are dead. The media's all over it, sales have completely tanked, and the one single thing that connects all the victims is your burger. Then the police confirm your absolute worst fear. This wasn't a mistake in the factory. It was deliberate sabotage. Someone targeted your brand, injecting poison into packages with something so fine it left zero trace on the outside. You have no way of knowing which products are safe and which ones are deadly. This wasn't an accident. This was a direct attack. So, the killer's still out there. Your sales are gone. What do? This isn't just a business problem anymore. This is a massive ethical dilemma. And the choice you make right now, it won't just hit your bank account. It's going to define the very soul of your company, for good. Okay, so this is the moment where business ethics stops being some abstract concept in a textbook and becomes painfully, terrifyingly real. To figure out how to handle a crisis like this, we've got to first understand the principles that can guide us through these impossible choices. The best way to think about business ethics is like a compass. It's not a map with a clear path, but it's the tool that helps you find your way through that murky gray area. Those situations where the law doesn't really give you an answer, and what's right and what's wrong is, well, it's not obvious at all. So to even begin to navigate that gray area, we have to ask a fundamental question. Who is actually affected by our decisions? Because I can tell you right now, it is never just about the money. And that question brings us to a really crucial idea, the stakeholder. So what's a stakeholder? It's basically any person or group who has a vested interest in what your company does. We're talking everyone from the investors who gave you the cash to start, all the way to the community where your factory is located. Back in the day, companies pretty much only thought about their employees and their customers. But today, that definition has exploded. It now includes this much, much wider network, because we've come to recognize that businesses have a huge social and environmental responsibility, too. And this really leads to a major fork in the road when it comes to business philosophy. On one side, you have the traditional shareholder-focused approach. The goal there is simple. Make as much money as possible for the investors, period. This often means chasing short-term gains. But on the other side, there's a more modern, holistic view that argues real, lasting success only comes from balancing the needs of all stakeholders. Okay, so let's circle back to our poisoned burger nightmare. How in the world do you pick a path forward when the interests of your investors, your employees, and your customers are all pulling you in completely different, conflicting directions? So your team lays out 3 frankly impossible options. Option 1, do nothing. Legally, you're not at fault, a criminal is. This protects your investors' money, but you're basically gambling with more people's lives. Option 2 is a middle ground, a recall just in that one city. This protects the local customers, maybe helps rebuild some trust, but it's going to mean layoffs. And then there's option 3, the nuclear option, a worldwide recall. It's the only way to guarantee public safety, but it's so expensive it could literally bankrupt the company and put every single one of your employees out of a job. When the path forward is this messy, there are a few simple but really powerful little tests you can use. First, the utilitarian test. Which choice creates the greatest good for the most people? Then, there's the family test. How would you feel explaining this decision to your own family? Or the newspaper test. How would you feel seeing it splashed across the front page? And finally, the mentor test. What would someone you truly admire do in your shoes? And listen, this is not just some hypothetical case study. This actually happened. Back in 1982, Johnson & Johnson faced this exact nightmare with the Tylenol poisonings. Their CEO, James Burke, made the call to recall 32 million bottles worldwide. He put customer safety above everything. It cost the company $250 million, a massive hit, but a completely rebuilt public trust, and their sales bounced back in less than a year. It's now the gold standard for crisis management.
But here's the thing. Ethics isn't just about these huge, dramatic, once-in-a-lifetime crises. It's in the small stuff, too. It shows up in our day-to-day operations in all sorts of ways.
The truth is, these ethical battlegrounds are everywhere. You've got internal challenges like stamping out discrimination and harassment, making sure the workplace is safe, or avoiding nepotism. Then there are the external ones, protecting customer data, keeping the books honest, and avoiding things like greenwashing, where a company talks a big game about being eco-friendly, but their actions don't back it up.
And successfully navigating all this stuff, it isn't really about having a fancy policy manual. It's about people. And it absolutely starts at the top. The ethical culture of any organization is a direct mirror of its leadership. Just look at these 3 real-world cases. They show how a leader's personal integrity, or, lack of it, can have huge consequences. You had Brendan Eich at Mozilla, who had to resign when his personal political views went against the company's values. Doves Charney at American Apparel got fired over a ton of sexual harassment allegations. And then you have someone like Evan Spiegel at Snapchat, who was able to weather a storm over some old offensive emails from college because he apologized, and he's still the CGO today.
At the end of the day, it so often boils down to individual courage. It's about having the guts, like this powerful quote here illustrates, to actually act on your shared values when things get tough, when the pressure is on, and it would be so much easier to just look the other way. And of course, we can't talk about business ethics today without talking about technology, because technology is constantly reshaping this entire landscape, and it's opening up a whole new frontier of ethical challenges and responsibilities. Think about the digital workplace. On one hand, the shift to remote work has been amazing for flexibility and focus. But on the other hand, it creates all these new pressures, right? That feeling like you have to be on 24/7, the way work bleeds into your personal life, and you can definitely lose some of that real in-person connection. And as our technology gets smarter and more powerful, the principles of data ethics become non-negotiable. We're talking about fundamental things, remembering that users own their own data, being totally transparent about how you collect it and what you do with it, protecting their privacy like it's your own. It's all about maintaining trust, and without it, you've got nothing. So you see, business ethics isn't some dusty rule book you memorize. It's a living, breathing, ongoing practice. And so when that big idea finally chooses you, the one that gets into your bloodstream and takes over every thought, the real question isn't just, what can I build? The real question is, what will my ethics demand of me? And the answer to that question, well, that's what will define everything.